What's up, y'all? Happy Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
As you can see.
Getting my Mr. Rogers on.
This is a special episode.
This is a special episode. Why is it a special episode?
This is the first video episode.
This is the first video episode. It's actually not the first one we recorded. It's just going to be the first one we're just going to force ourselves to put out.
Yeah, we've recorded other ones, but they just... Yeah.
This is what you're going to learn about pushing out content, is that you can't wait until it's perfect, even though sometimes we just cut some out of there. But today we're going to release this. We're going to let you know, because we just got to do it. We got to be real. We got to be who we are. Even if it's weakness, even if it sucks, even if it's not, it don't look good. We're going to be who we are. We're going to put it out because we want to be real.
Yeah. So like if you're listening on video, this is also on audio.
Yeah.
Or if you're watching on video, this is also on audio on our podcast. And if you're listening to this through our multiple streaming platforms, we are now live on YouTube. So this is now the beginning of the video.
You can see what we look like. I see the content artwork, the podcast artwork, but I don't know what y'all really look like.
Now you can see
Now you see this is us in the home. You know what I'm saying? We had to close our windows and close the door. Usually we like to let some sunlight in, but Richmond don't know how to be quiet. So.
Yeah, so if you hear some noise and you hear our neighbors laughing and doors slamming,
they love each other and they're connecting.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah, welcome to the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Would you be my neighbor? Okay.
Hi, neighbor.
Oh gosh. Guys, welcome to the Miller Time Podcast.
Miller Time Podcast.
I don't even know where to look. Like, do I look at you? Do I look at them?
We can do it all. It don't matter.
Okay.
It's right here. Y'all in the living room with us. Y'all chilling in the house. So we're going to just include you into the conversation. We're going to look at you. Look in your eye. Then I'm going to look at my wife. And then we're going to look you back in the eye.
And look back at you. Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
We are continuing our series on life lessons.
Life lessons with Pat and CoCo.
Yes. And really this series is dedicated to us being able to go into like foundational life lessons that have helped make us who we are. And I know previously we've released an episode that went into who we are in terms of our identities, being Black, Christian, married, millennial, business owning couple.
And then I talked a little bit about my identity, finding out when I was Black and how my attraction to white women or lighter skinned people was this self-hatred I had for myself that I don't even know where it came from.
Right. I mean, we know where it came from. I know
now.
Yeah.
But then I was just like, I don't know. Yeah.
Right. And so today we're going to be getting into continuing, I think, a little bit more on race and Blackness, but we're going to get into what does it mean to have light skin privilege.
Dang. I mean, yeah.
A lot of other things. We're going to be hitting on one, light skin privilege. What does it mean to also not be Black enough?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of things. So
just
like I always say, buckle your seatbelt, because I think today I'm glad you clicked.
Click.
I think the goal of today is to be really vulnerable about mindsets and beliefs personally that I've had based on my skin color and based on how society has viewed me. And for us to open up conversation, how it can relate to all of us being people of color, trying to redefine success.
Trying to redefine success for us, for you, for everybody, for our kids, people of color. We got to do it.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Let's dive in. So I know that this is going to be narrative style. We're going to talk a little bit about your story, where you come from and where it started, and then where that led you to. And I'm going to kind of play a role asking questions. I'm going to be a little bit of jerk and try to get Courtney to share some of the things she doesn't want to share. And so
Okay.
I'm gonna just be pushing. I'm gonna be asking questions to see if we can go deep, see if we can explore what's really going on. So yeah, cool.
Ask me something.
All right, cool. So tell me about you. Tell me about when you were a child. How was your identity shaped as a Black woman?
I don't remember the first time knowing that I was Black, but I think growing up, like, my parents raised us in like a suburban neighborhood with like a 4-bedroom house and a huge backyard. We had a dog. So I feel like we were living the American dream, and I thought, okay, everybody pretty much lives this way.
Yeah.
This is normal. And went to Christian private school my whole life in uniforms. And I think I grew up with this is everybody's reality. And then it wasn't until probably, I want to say maybe middle school, because I went to a new Christian middle school. And I started...
What was different about this Christian middle school?
Well, one, the private school I went to, elementary school, like, there was a lot of different races. Not a lot of Black people, but like I had some Black friends there. And then when I went to middle school, I saw like a lot more color. And I went to school in El Sobrante, and that is more of like kind of more of a white neighborhood, but there's some color in there too. And so I think I started realizing, like, I started getting this stereotype on me, which was the goody two shoes and being light skinned. And I was like,
where did those come from? Like, what was the experience that happened that you got that title?
I do not remember, but I remember going to middle school. We didn't have to wear uniforms. All we had to do was wear collared shirts. Gotcha. So we could wear anything. And I remember just having some random memories of people saying like, oh, Courtney's a goody goody, or, you know, she's not the typical Black, like she's light skinned, almost like a I'm better than kind of thing. And I never understood, like, what does that mean? Like,
was it because everybody else was like, oh, well, we're gonna push this and we're gonna wear whatever we want, and then you had all these different outfits?
I've always been a rule follower. I love following rules. I think I was raised to really respect structure and respect authority and respect when I was told to do something. And so I don't know if that's how I got goody two shoes, but I think that goody two shoes came from just like my morals and values and what I refuse to engage in. And but I think when I would grow up, I would hear a lot of times my parents talk about like being Black, but I thought my Black was like the typical Black. Like everybody has like, you know, pretty nice house. Like my grandparents grew up and always had like a big house. And so I just thought like, this is
Your
what...
grandparents had a big house?
Yeah.
Or, oh really? So when they grew up, they always had a big house?
No. When I was growing up and I would go over their house,
they always had a
big house.
So
too.
Your mom and dad had a big house, your grandparents had a big house. So right. Just like, we just lived the big house life.
You know, having an Lexus and, you know, Escalade, like all these like nice cars.
You got an Escalade. Okay.
And that was my grandpa's car. He drove his Escalade.
Sheesh.
Was it an Escalade or Expedition? I forgot what it's. The
fact that you got to sit here and like explore that, I'm like, I wish
it was a big old car.
I remember being in elementary school and seeing all the kids pull up with their nice cars, the Escalade, the Expedition, and I was like, I just hope my grandparents pull up with a new car. And they'd always pull up in a little bucket. I'd be like, well, time to go.
Well, yeah. So I think middle school is when I started seeing difference in other of my Black friends' experiences, like going over their house and see like, oh, like this is a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and you know, parents' cars would be different. So I started seeing like there's differences, but it didn't really shape like, oh, like you're less than, or you're like, why aren't your parents having this? Like, it was just, I was observing, like, why is there so much difference in terms of things I have or have access to?
So you're just kind of observing it from, like, an objective standpoint. Like, like, I see that, like, I have a 3 or 4 bedroom home, and I come here to maybe your 2 bedroom apartment, and there's, like, a lot of differences in our lives.
Right. And, you know, just the fact that, like, my parents were married, up until I was 21. But my narrative was like, oh, I have two parents in the household. And a lot of my friends just were living with their mom. And so it was like, oh my goodness, like, I'm so glad I have Black parents that have stayed together. Or it wasn't Black parents, it was just parents that have stayed together. And so I think eventually, like, I would sometimes hear from my parents telling like, oh, Black people do this, in terms of like what we do. And I was like, oh, since we do this is what all Black people do. But it wasn't until I saw a difference and I was like, wait, maybe this isn't the complete Black experience. And so I started seeing how when people would say, oh, you're light skinned, like you're not Black enough. I'm like, what does it mean to not be Black enough? Like, what does it mean to be Black? And so I think seeing media representations and seeing a lot of things that are like, oh, Black girls have big booties and Black girls are thick and Black girls have really kinky hair and Black girls have big lips, big nose. I was like, well, oh, and Black girls have darker skin. So when anytime someone would look at me, they're like, oh, what are you? Oh, okay, it's coming back to me. First time I remembered that I was not the typical Black, I remember being in church.
Here it is. And
someone came up to me and they were like, what are you? And I was like, I'm Black. And they're like, no, you're not. Like, you must be mixed. Like, Black people don't look like that. And so that, I think now it just came to me, that was a defining moment. I think that was 5th or 6th grade.
Wow.
That's when I was like, wait, why does what I look like not constitute Black? And so they were like, your dad must be like Puerto Rican or white or something. Like, I was like,
no. I mean, he looked like Elder Barge, but not.
I mean, when you see my dad, like, my dad doesn't look like the typical Black person.
Right.
Like, he has wavy hair. Like, he don't got no kink. He don't got no kitchen. So when people see my dad, they're like, look at your dad. Like, there's no way he's full Black. And I'm like, actually, he is. Both of his parents were Black. So sometimes I feel like I've had to do this thing of like proving that I'm Black, because when people see my light skin and they see my hair, they're like, there has to be some white up in there. Black people don't look like that. Yeah, so I think that was my first memory of that.
That's so interesting, because I remember having a similar experience where I was at this Berkeley summer program called BYA, and I remember we went to the pool, and like I took off my shoes and my socks, and my feet were super white. They were just super bright. And some one girl.
You
looked
still
at me
have white feet.
I just because I don't expose them. I'll be butt booty naked with some socks on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember some girl looked at my feet and was like, "Are you white?" And I was like, "What?" No. And then I started questioning myself, am I white? Or is it because my feet what tells that I'm white or something? I remember feeling ashamed of my feet, like, am I white? and I like questioned myself. I was like, maybe I am white. And I'm like, yo.
Oh my
but yeah,
gosh.
that was a crazy experience.
I mean, but it's like, it was almost how you are even showing in your body language, like this fear of questioning, like, oh no, am I not Black enough? Like, is there something that is less than Black in me that would discount my Blackness? And I think that was something that I started experiencing a lot in middle school and high school, where no, Black people don't have houses like this. Like, you guys are a different kind of Black. Like, you're the ones that got money kind of Black. And I think that often made me feel isolated and different. And I felt like I didn't fit in, because like I didn't hang out with the Black girls in high school. Like, I hung out with a lot of like people on my cheer team, and a lot of people were Filipino too. Wow. And so I felt like I couldn't fit in with the typical Black experience of what I saw as maybe living in poverty, or living in a low income neighborhood, or living in lack of access, whatever it was. I had a different kind of Black that didn't fit in.
Wow. So I think it's interesting, because it's almost like before you even came to this place of clearly understanding that you were Black, you already had this question or you already had this like maybe like challenge of you're not black enough. So it's like even for fully coming to the understanding of who you are as a black woman, you are already being challenged with, well, you're not black enough. So not only do you not know what black is, but you also know you're not enough of it. Right. And so like you're already being hit with this like complexity of like, who am I? And like, how do I identify? Right.
Yeah. And I think that like with racial development, sometimes we really pick up from our environments and what people say about us. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when I'm looking for how do I make sense of who I am? How do I make sense of who people look at me as? Mm-hmm. It was always complex because I didn't fit into the stereotypical black. Mm-hmm. And so that made me often feel like, well, I don't know. I mean, the number one word that it just felt like really like just different. And so I think that difference wasn't something bad to me though, because I saw that it had a lot of privileges.
So let's talk about that, because I think it's easy to see, and not to say that you weren't a victim, because I mean, you didn't come into this world choosing to be light skin or choosing to like live in a fat house or anything else like that. Like you didn't have any say into the matter. Right. Your parents were the one that made the decision.
I blame them.
Right. And so they brought you into this, and so you were kind of forced into this, maybe having to shape your identity around what other people believe and other people think. And though that was like problematic because it maybe kept you away from, or it kept you out of the group of you're black or you're not black. It kept you out of that group. So, I mean, because you can't say you're white or you can't, you're something
I definitely
else.
don't look white.
Right. So it's like, okay, what am I then if I'm not black? But also with that, there are some privileges that came with that as well. And so you were afforded some privileges that the people who were saying you're not black were obviously coming from this place like, dang, my life sucks because of certain things, and I see that you don't have those certain things, or you don't have to deal with those certain things, so you must not be black. Let's talk about those privileges. What are some of the privileges that you have been afforded because of your light skin and class? Your class.
I definitely think education has been a huge one. Education has been super stressed, like almost one of the most important things next to my faith in God. In my family, a big thing that we value is education. And so growing up, we had books on books on books. It was constantly being in extracurricular math classes, extracurricular creative writing classes. Like summers was not summer. It was like you gonna be in something extracurricular.
So when you say extracurricular, like this is outside of school.
Yes,
there were programs
like
that you were in.
Intensive summer programs for learning.
Like where are these programs at?
Berkeley.
Got you. So these are just programs that your parents found. And were they free to be in?
No, you had to pay to be in these programs.
Got you. So after you're out of school and during your summer and during like your breaks, your parents are paying for programs for you to be in, to do like math and writing and different things like that.
Yeah, it was like, I remember very, very vividly, my grandma would pick us up. She would drop us off. I remember one of my classes was a creative writing class, and it was just our normal. Summer was not for sitting and watching TV. We were going to be...
What?
No. I mean, I'm sure it happened, but I vividly remember always waking up like it was school during the summer.
Wow.
And so that was my normal, and I loved school. I excelled in school. Like, girl was getting A, and we got paid anytime we got A's.
Paid by who?
Grandma.
Oh my gosh.
Grandma would pay us like $10 per A.
So not only, you're in private schools. You're in private, you get to go to this private school, Christian private schools, and I'm sure they cost. But also during the summertime, you're in summer programs that cost money. Yeah. And even as that's happening, you're getting paid for the grades that you're actually getting as well.
That was my life. I mean, when I say it out loud, I'm like, how did I not see how privileged we were? But that was the
It's
only
crazy.
normal. I thought everybody gets paid for the grades.
If I, like, my parents would have been like, paid? That's what you're supposed to do.
I know.
You get paid with the grades. You do your job and you get paid with good grades.
We got paid overtime.
Sheesh.
So getting paid for grades, and then eventually like college was always the only option. Like there was no option of go to high school or drop out and go to work. Like it was, oh no, you gonna go straight into school. And so like when it came time for like sophomore year of high school, we started touring colleges.
Touring with who?
My mom.
So your mom is taking you to colleges. Wow.
We started touring campuses, and
so she's paying for these trips, and she's going. This.
I mean,
isn't
these
like
were
a
all
program.
Bay. I didn't want to go out of state, so we were in the Bay touring different
Got you.
colleges.
But these are trips that she's saying, let's do this. This isn't a part of a program or some other
Yeah,
extracurricular
her
thing. Okay.
So her and like all my friends, we were always like talking about, oh my gosh, did you hear about so and so? They didn't get into Stanford. Like that was our normal
So
conversation.
this is like 11th grade or something
Yeah,
like that when
yeah.
you guys are
And
applying for school.
it was serious. It was like junior year was so stressful. It was like, get them grades up, Courtney, like working on personal statements. I would go to workshops. I would send my personal statement to people, like critique, send it back, revise, send it back. And like, it was all for education. And so even
So like you're sending, who are you sending these to? Like you're going to workshops. Where are these workshops at?
well, like SAT prep stuff and like
Is
college
this through
writing
school?
stuff.
Is this through school or is this?
No, this through other outside programs.
Got you. So there's programs that are assisting you with like how to write essays and how to apply for college and different things like that.
Yep.
And so like with applying for colleges and maybe even like financial support, were there people like teaching you how to do these things through like high school?
No, my mom just did everything.
Oh, your mom did everything. So your mom was like pretty savvy on like
She was very savvy.
how to get, like how to apply, what programs you need to be a part of and stuff like that. So she was the one kind of like
She
handling
was
things.
very involved in our education.
Gotcha.
And
Your mom went to college?
yeah, she did.
Nice.
She graduated.
Yeah. And your grandparents went to college
Yes.
on your mom's side.
Yes.
Got you. And so did your great grandma go to college?
Yes, she did.
See, I think that this is also, hold on.
What?
This is also privilege as well.
It
'Cause
is.
A lot of people don't even realize that, not even just the fact that your mom, your grandma, and your great grandma went to college, but the fact that I can ask you that and I know that you can answer it because,
right.
because of the fact that you had your great grandma just recently passed,
Right.
but you had like a relationship with your great grandma.
My great grandmother was 97 years old, and I
Right.
knew her for 26 years or 25 years of my life.
25 years of your life, you knew your great grandma. I think there's not a lot of people who can be like, yeah, I knew my great grandmother. Like
Yeah.
I knew, like we had conversations. I went over there, I hung out with her and talked with her. Like,
Great-grandma.
like I knew her too, but I'm just
Right.
like, that itself is like amazing. That like I don't think I can ask many people, hey, did your great grandmother, and they not have to be like, hold on, let me call my mom or let me call my
Right.
grandma and ask. But
Right.
like,
That is a privilege, especially since Black people often we don't have access to our ancestry and where we come from. And so it's like the most ancestry we can have is usually our grandparents. And
Right.
if they know
Right.
something about their great grandparents or whatever. So the fact that I had my WOA for 25 years of my life, and she wasn't starting to like decrease in her mental capacity. I mean, of course, eventually, but like she was sharp all the way. So
Yeah,
like
she was really
I
sharp.
could have conversations with her, and you know, we visited her multiple times. She knew.
I remember
who we
there was
were.
like maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 months, 3 months before she was about to pass, there was like a scare. And they were like, oh, she's not moving. She's not doing
Right.
anything. You know, you guys should go visit her. You don't know how long it's going to be. And I remember like going over there and like, this lady is alive.
Yeah.
like y'all tripping.
She didn't
like,
pass until a year after that.
Yeah, she was like, she like literally having conversations with her. I think you like pulled out a protein bar. She was like, what you eat?
I know. What
and
is
she was
that?
like, let me have some. Is that candy? And then you gave her
She
some. She's like,
loved candy.
oh no.
She didn't like
oh,
it.
no.
That's okay.
But yeah, so your great grandmother went to college. I guess I'm gonna go further. Did your great grandparents go to
I
college?
do not know, but I know they were business owners. They owned a grocery store in Oakland.
In West Oakland.
Oakland.
So you got lineage. You got like crazy lineage.
And all of them own businesses. So
So you got great grandparents owning property and businesses in West Oakland.
Right.
You got great grandmother going to college and probably being a part of those businesses and owning property in Oakland. Mm-hmm. Then you got grandparents who went to college and own business property own property, and like we live in this property.
Yeah. Welcome to their property.
Welcome to their property. We are reaping the benefits of this like black powerful clan. And then you have your mom who went to college, and now she's able to give you resources and access to a whole bunch of different things. Right. Yeah. And was it the same on your dad's side or?
No. Well, my dad's side, they did all go to college. Like my grandfather was a city councilman in Berkeley. Mm-hmm. So,
Wasn't
in
he
government.
A part of the police department too, or no? Was that just?
No, my uncle. So my uncle's part of police department. Wow. So on both sides, college has been very important, but my dad did not graduate college.
Wow. Okay.
My dad went, and college was not the business for him. Mm-hmm. He did not finish. And that was always something that was notable in my family, because my dad was a business owner as well. He owned a car dealer, car detailing business.
Oh, detailer.
So he was always a hustler, and he never let his lack of degree stop him. But he acknowledges it was difficult as a black man not having a college degree, but God opened up so many doors for him where a man with no college degree was making more money than some white people. A black man with no college degree was making more money than some of his white colleagues.
There are a lot of white people with no college degree who are making millions of dollars, but there's not many black men with no college degree who are,
Right. And I think that my dad, even though he did not go to college, he still highly stressed college for us. Mm-hmm. And so that wasn't be like me, you don't need to go to college. That was never a conversation. The only conversation was education. And so going to UC Berkeley, that was like a huge thing. My family was so proud. So like, oh my gosh, our daughter goes to the #1 public institution in the world. It was a big deal. And I was just like, it's just Cal. It's dirty. It's big. It's crazy people here.
Yeah, Berkeley.
It's Berkeley. But and then it was always like, you don't stop at bachelor's. Like, you keep going.
Who was telling you that? Was that like
grandparents?
So your grandparents was like, keep going. My
grandparents have played a huge part, especially in my education, because they've funded a lot of my education.
So how did you pay for college?
My grandparents and my parents. I didn't take out any loans.
No loans. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Lord.
As privileged as that is, I'm glad that I can benefit from that and not have to pay for no loans.
I don't think it hit me when I was in college how big of a deal that was, because my friends would be talking about loans and FAFSA, and I'm like, what's FAFSA? But it was like my parents, they paid like cash money to have me stay in the dorms and pay for my college tuition. But the deal was, we're only going to do it for 1 year. You're coming back home sophomore year, and then we'll pay for your tuition. So I think having parents who saved a lot of money ever since we were born and put it aside for our college education was a huge privilege that I don't think I fully appreciated until after college was over, when I was like, oh, I don't have any loans.
Just even having parents who have the foresight to think about that, like to think, oh, our kid is going to go to college before you're even there, to be like, we're going to start putting money away for your college is a huge thing. I mean,
I remember, I'll never forget this day. This white man came over our house, and I was like, what is this guy doing here? And they're like, this is our financial planner. His name's Neil. And Neil would sit at our dinner table, and they would lay out all these papers. And I remember hearing Neil ask my parents, like, okay, what are you going to do about Courtney's college fund? And what about CJ's college fund? And like all these things. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is normal, but now I know that was not normal.
Absolutely not normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't even think, like, I'm just thinking about, like, inheritance and stuff like that. Like, I can't, maybe I'll get something, but I don't think I have much, like, inheritance being left from, like, my family. I think, like, my grandparents are, like, my grandma was like, all right, we're going to leave you a little something. Because, like, you know, they got their 3 kids. And
right.
They're like, we're going to leave you a little something. But I'm like, I'm not expecting to get anything, like, passed down from generations. So, like, the fact that your parents had that type of foresight is crazy. In my mind, just to think about that, which...
Yeah. I mean, my grandparents would always say stuff like, it's godly or it's biblical to leave inheritances for the future generations.
Right.
And so, like, my grandparents would say, I'm giving you your inheritance while I'm still alive, which was my education fund. So they were like, I'm not going to wait until I die to give you all this money. I'm going to give it to you while we still have relationships. So my grandparents paid for my college tuition like every month.
Wow.
And they continue to do so for my doctorate degree.
I mean, we got loans. Now.
No, we got a heck of loans. They not
now.
paying,
but they helping for sure. They're helping for sure.
Yeah, my grandparents are very generous.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. I mean, so just being able to, like, recap on everything that we talked about, you from being raised in this family and before you can even form what your black identity is, you already have people challenging your black identity and saying that you're not black enough. And so as you're trying to learn what black is, you're being told you're not enough of it. But to also recognize that you have this intersectionality where there's a lot of privilege that's being afforded to you because of your blackness, because of your class and because of the financial status that you're at, you're able to have a lot of opportunities that a lot of people wouldn't have had.
Right.
Like, I'm wondering how many of your friends and classmates were a part of, like, these types of programs were during the summer and stuff like that. Were there a lot, or?
I don't really know regarding, like, elementary school, because that's when the summer programs began. That wasn't a conversation I was having in middle school. Like, what summer programs?
How was your summer? Did you join an extracurricular?
That wasn't a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think high school, when I went to a private Catholic school, that was normal. Everybody was doing stuff to get ahead because it was a competition. Like,
got you. So that was the culture of that.
Oh, it was the culture. It was a college prep school. So it was like, how are you getting your resume, like, stellar?
Wow.
And
so what grade were you talking about resumes and things like that?
At least definitely 10th grade.
Okay. So this is like, as soon as you get in, you're ready to go.
Oh, yeah. I remember having a friend that was like, oh, my gosh, I have to boost up my volunteer experience. I'm not working enough volunteer hours. Like, that's going to put me back on my college applications. So that was like in high school, that started becoming a thing of, like, how can we look even better? How can I get more extracurricular? How can I do more volunteer?
Wow.
Which I thought that was normal. But I think with the intersectionality of being black, but being light-skinned and black, and then the intersectionality of having a lot of class privilege with higher education as well as higher financial resources, I think that it made me also very, I don't know what the word is, but, like,
aware, or what do you mean, like?
But not biased, but, like, it made me ignorant. Maybe
okay.
Ignorant is the word.
Got you. Ignorant to, like, what's going on in the world, and sheltered.
Yes.
Got you. Yeah.
Very sheltered and ignorant to what life was outside of my family. And it wasn't, I think, until maybe college, and maybe college, when I was at Cal and I was living by myself or living in the dorms, that I was like, wait, like, I lived on the black floor and talking to other black people about their experiences. I was like, wait, some people had similar experiences to me, but then others lived completely different Black lives. And I was like, oh, like there's difference. And so I think sometimes when the whole like you're not Black enough, you have that light skin privilege, it was always like you're better than, and you've had a better life than I've been able to have.
Got you. So let's talk about this. So we talked about a lot of the class privilege, and we hit it a little bit on like the color of your skin and stuff like that, and we really went into this class thing, but also I want to know what is this light skin privilege? What does that mean?
Yes.
And
I didn't know what it was until I got older, when my friends who were darker skinned would say that to me, and they'll like, I was like, what do you mean? We're both Black. And they're like, no, you look mixed. Like you look like you got white in you. And so I don't think it was until I got probably closer to like, maybe freshman year of college, when I started feeling like people kept saying this to me. You look mixed. Like you're not Black. You're not full Black. And I'm like, why isn't this Black? What about this is not Black enough? And I mean, we know why people would assume that I'm mixed, because usually dark skin plus dark skin don't equal this color. So it must assume dark skin plus a white person had to equal this color.
Yeah. And then of course you have, I mean, you got TV too. I remember like there was this whole dark skin versus light skin battle on Instagram for a long time. And it was like Scar versus Mufasa, where Scar was the dark skin lion and Mufasa was the light skin lion. And I mean, you just got like
Beyonce versus Kelly and Michelle.
Yeah, Kelly and Michelle. You got like, man, I mean, you can go on. I'm just trying to think of like all the light skinned people. There was the sister from Coming to America. I remember that specifically. The sister from Coming to America, the one that Prince Hakeem ended up wanting to be with, was the light skinned one.
Right.
And the dark skinned one was like really all about him. And he was just like, no, I want your sister. I want your sister. And it was like this whole thing. It was like, no, she's the one I want. And like in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, he wants a sister because the sister's pretty. Then I'm like, the dark skinned sister is like way prettier. Not, she was just pretty. She was like way prettier than the other girl. But it was like you always saw that in movies, where it was always the light skinned one was the like prettier one or the most desirable one. And then that started these battles where you got dark skinned Aunt Viv, and then all of a sudden, why dark skinned Aunt Viv turned to light skin? You got light skinned Aunt Viv.
That was crazy.
I remember there was this whole like debate and battle about the fact that they did that because they wanted a light skinned woman, and a bunch of other stuff. But it turned out that the dark skinned Aunt Viv and Will didn't really get along. Yeah. It was conflict, but still, it was like, it's just like you could have found anybody else, and that's what Hollywood does, is like like how can we get more like light skinned people in here?
It's like we're the acceptable Blacks.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you'll look on billboards and you'll see Black people, or you'll walk in Target and you'll go down the aisle and they'll have like models up there, like Black models, but those Black models are either like really dark, like almost look like maybe like African, like models. Then they'll have like super light skinned models
that look racially ambiguous.
Yeah, they look racially ambiguous. So it's like, all right, like I'll see some African models, or I'll see some like very, very light skinned models, but I just won't see like normal plain old black black models. And so I think that there's this battle that's going on already through media that we're not necessarily able to put our finger on, but it exists. And so now here this is showing up in your life in a certain way.
And I think it was always like there must be white in you because Black can't look like that, like, and that made me feel like, does that mean Black isn't beautiful? Like Black always has to be kinky nappy hair, whatever else. But like I was always like, but I know that I will never have the same experience as one of my darker skin friends. Like when we walk into a job interview, as two black women who maybe identified on a job application as black,
had the same grades, had the same experiences,
same everything. And even let's get into name. Like Courtney is not a black, quote unquote, black name. So when I put on a job application Courtney Miller, and one of my friends puts like Latifah Miller, there's going to be already preset. They're going to be like, no thank you, queen. Yeah, it's different. But we have the same qualifications, same everything. But I show it with my light skin and my white name, and they show it with a more black name and darker skin. It's going to be different treatment.
Yeah, I mean, this was like a problem with Uber because Uber rides were getting declined, and what they showed was people who had black names were actually getting their rides declined more than people who had white-ish names. And so if your name was like Dante or anything like Byron, exactly, Damien, like they're gonna be like no thank you, decline. But like if you have a name like Patrick or you have a name like Courtney, they're like, okay,
can't tell what race we are with
pull up names. And they be surprised,
right But it's like, I mean, I know that the whole light skin privilege, it didn't just come out of nowhere in millennial society.
No, definitely not.
Like, where did light skin privilege begin?
All right, y'all. Thank y'all for listening to this episode of the Miller Time Podcast as we talk about light skin privilege. We really appreciate y'all for listening. This episode was super long, so we decided to cut it in half. So this is actually the first half of light skin privilege. But we definitely wanted to pull out some of the key important takeaways out of this episode. Though this isn't done, later on we will continue the conversation on light skin privilege, and Courtney will talk about how she has allowed some thoughts and even mindsets to be carried on that may have been found in the Rwandan genocide. So definitely make sure you listen into next week's episode on light skin privilege part 2. But before we leave, I definitely wanted to end with a takeaway for you all. As we've been talking through this episode, Courtney was talking about how she was discovering and coming to this place of understanding who she is as a black woman. But before she could even do that, she was told that she wasn't black enough. But also with understanding that she was a black woman, but somehow her skin, her light skin, made her different from other black people, or at least that's what she was told, that she had to recognize that there were some privileges that she had, like wealth, education, community, family, and even name. So as Courtney went through her life, understanding about the privileges that she has and some things that she didn't even have power over, that she didn't ask for, those are still privileges that she has to become aware of and how she uses those privileges in her life. So before we end, we definitely wanted to give you some key takeaways that you could think about, that as you go through your life and you've lived your life, what are some privileges that you have had? How do you use your privileges to elevate or harm others? And how can you use your privileges to provide opportunities for others? So the first one is, one, what are some privileges that you have had in your life, even if privileges that you did not ask for, privileges that you didn't go looking for, but maybe you were just born with? How do you use your privileges to provide a platform, or how do you use your privileges to hurt or harm or oppress others? And how can you begin to provide more opportunities for others through your privileges? Something that we definitely want you all to be mindful of is that a lot of times with privileges, we can definitely be unaware and we don't even realize that we have privileges. Sometimes they can, or most of the time they can be unsolicited, especially when we think about wealth and education and community and family. Those aren't things that we can ask for. A lot of times privileges can be built on the back of our parents, our grandparents, even our great grandparents. And that doesn't necessarily make us bad people, but a lot of times we have to make sure that we're not ignorant of our privileges, because even in our ignorance, we can harm others. We're so grateful for you all. We're so grateful for you listening to the Miller Time Podcast, and we love you all. And we also appreciate the fact that you all have been sending us messages, that you have been DMing us on Instagram and on Facebook, even on Twitter, and you've been sharing and liking our podcast, writing us reviews, and all of it. We definitely appreciate it. When you do that, it helps our podcast continue to grow and continue to reach. Even outside of the United States, we see that we have listeners in Australia, we have listeners in South America, Dominican Republic, the UK, all over the place. And so we're so grateful. Sweden, we're so grateful for all of you listening to the Miller Time Podcast. We're truly humbled, and we hope to continue to bring you valuable content that you will find useful in your day-to-day life. And maybe even you're listening to this and you're saying, hey, I know somebody I'm thinking of right now who could listen to this podcast and would benefit from it. Please share, like, subscribe, do it all. And we will continue to bring you the best that we got. All right. We hope that you're excited for next week's episode every Monday where we drop our episodes, the Miller Time Podcast. And remember, you have the power to create an extraordinary life. Peace.